Greetings, folks, and welcome once again to KS Customs. I am your host, Richard of KS Collectibles. I wanted to start off by saying I apologize for the lack of updates recently. Like I had said before, I had been dealing with some health issues and currently dealing with some health issues, and at times it's quite problematic for me to be able to actually really speak because they deal with my lungs a lot. So running off at the mouth becomes a little difficult at times, also with my energy levels and stuff. So hopefully we're going to get back to doing more regular updates. Hopefully the fires out in Southern California have been caught or at least contained, where I'm not dealing with as much of the smoke and smog as I have been. But I also wanted to change the structure of the show. We're still going to focus on the customization and going through how I do the customs. But what I wanted to do is make it a little bit more friendly for the listener and not just somebody who's watching the video. So we wanted to make it so it's not exactly necessary to actually watch the videos, though it is more helpful for people that learn by watching, other than, just hearing things. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to start off on, and it's going to be a short episode. I don't know, as you can tell, maybe in my voice, that I am still kind of struggling with the oxygen and still struggling with being able to speak for long periods of time. But I wanted to get this started. It is actually tomorrow. Tomorrow as I'm filming this or recording this, which will be when it is uploaded on Saturday, which is my 51st birthday. So happy birthday to me. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. And be sure to like, subscribe, comment. And we're going to kick this off by what I'm doing, and what I had announced before is I'm going to be doing a custom Nation of Domination Owen Hart. And I'm going to show you basically step by step how I go through the process of doing my custom figures, as opposed to bouncing around on each figure, or just doing, like, this isn't going to be just a repaint or anything like that. This is something that's actually broken down and reconstructed. So first thing you need to do is you need to get yourself a point of reference. So the light's not getting it. That is my point of reference that I'm doing. The Caution Danger Owen Hart that he wore over the Nation of Domination. I have a awesome head sculpt, which I have showed on here before. If the camera will catch it, there it is, of Owen Hart. That was done actually by a seller. You can find him on eBay under the name Tom Veg, V-E-G, T-O-M-V-E-G on Instagram. And if you go to his profile, he has a shop online where you can purchase some awesome head sculpts. Most of the sculpts that I have from the 80s and 90s wrestlers that I do, a lot of the customs, are done by Tom. Tom does amazing, amazing work. And there's also, I'm not going to show you, like, this is a breakdown. You can see how scattered the parts are. This is the torso. And it's already been deconstructed. It's already been broken down. I'm not going to show you on this video how to break that down, because there's actually a buddy of mine by the name of Dustin Young. You can find him on YouTube. His name, once again, Dustin Young. He actually showed me a very fast, very easy way to torso crack. So go ahead and look him up on YouTube. Once again, his name is Dustin Young on YouTube. He has a real simple way, and he shows you how to crack not only the WWE Elite torsos, but he does the Ultimate Editions as well, which for instance, this Triple H that I'm working on currently. Oops, wrong way. And Dustin has a very quick and simple way to crack those torsos, so you can easel axis, and it takes no heat, and it's really fast. I've been doing these customs for years, and when Dustin showed me this trick, I was floored. So I don't want to take any credit away from the man who showed me. I'm sure there's other people who have done it or whatever, but Dustin's the one that showed me first, and I'm not sure if he was the first one to do it or not. But you know, he's a good buddy of mine. He gives me a lot of help on ideas for parts and stuff like that. But he's not a repainter, whereas I am. So he does some awesome customs. So definitely check him out. Anyway, so I have my parts here that I'm using for the base, and what I wanted to do. Like I said, I have the Owen Hart head right here. Let's put it still on camera. Okay, so the head is right there. Now I have the lower bodies, the legs. These are actually Jack Swagger that I had already started repainting. It's simple. What we're going to do is we're just going to paint it black. And the overrun on the paint coming onto the thighs isn't that big of a deal right now. Because since we are painting the head, we want all our flesh tones to match. So we will be painting the flesh tones on the legs as well as the torso. And then I have a torso, which, let me see if I can just, where's the abs? And the torso is actually the recent WWE Elite Pete Dunne, which a lot of the singlet WWE Elites tend to be on the thinner side, more of the cruiserweight, like X-Pac or people like that. Much smaller torso. This is a beefier torso with a little bit of a belt, like not huge. Like it's not like Finley has a much bigger, broader torso than this. This is a perfect for an Owen Hart. So this is the, as well as the arms are from Pete Dunne. As you can see, this is basically, I think this is the Butch, because it's the Brawling Brutes one. But I'll just basically throw it kind of together. I'm not going to put the back on this, but so you can get an idea of what I'm looking at for my Owen. So what I'm going to have to do is paint these parts. And what I do is I'll paint them, paint all of the singlet to the black, all the singlet black here. Once again, not really worrying about the flesh because we're going to want it all to match. Though the flesh is similar, there is definitely a difference, a tone difference. I don't know if you can see it on camera. So that's why we paint the flesh anyway, so it all matches. But what we'll ultimately do is end up painting these together. I also have the boots. These are the medium height boots, so it should drop the height down enough where he's the proper height. At least I'm hoping. As also, I have the large knee pads. So that's everything I need as far as building the figure. And now it's basically just the painting and putting it together. So there's a few things that I do need. Obviously there's paint, there is the black paint. I use, once again, all types. This is the Art Deco that you can get at Walmart or Hobby Lobby or whatever. So I tend to use white, or the black. There's red, brown. These are the base colors. Mostly what I need. Some of it has to do with the flesh. I need the red for the flesh. White. I do tend to use the Vallejo colors also, as well as my flesh tones, which are the Keslev flesh and the Cadian, which is a darker tone. This will be an undertone, as the Keslev will be the upper tone, because Owen was not very... Well, actually, there was times where Owen was very tan, but I think that was more when he was with Jeff Jarrett. And I also have a yellow here, which this is a very bright yellow, so I'm going to mix a little bit of dark sand with it to get, hopefully, the yellow that I'm looking for. As well as I have my matte varnish, because what we do is we apply one coat, we seal that coat, wait for it to dry. Usually I let it sit overnight just to be on the safe side. We paint another coat over it, put another coat of varnish, same thing. So we usually do it at least 3. And then for the flesh tones, I have a red wash, a green wash, a blue wash, and a brown wash, which as we go on, I will show you how I use those to try to make as realistic looking flesh as possible. That's something that as we get into the flesh, I'll be more... there'll be more information about that. I usually have a nail file and a little piece of fine grit sandpaper. I believe this is 400, which I typically use it for joints, so paint doesn't come off joint areas. I shouldn't have that issue with any of the joints on this, because it's mostly flesh, and it's not... I don't really have to get in the crevices, because the difference in the flesh tone isn't that striking that if the paint rubs off, it's super noticeable. So that's basically the build, and I can... Usually what I do is I will put it together like a little dry run to make sure everything fits and it looks the way I want it to, typically. So I will put the torso together. And I'm not using the elbow pad, because the elbow pad that he had in the image was due to an injury, and it wasn't something he normally wore. So there is the body. We can, and I use the same thing. This is what I use to actually hold the head on the body. It's just sticky tack. It is, they use it for posters. It's really easy to use, really cheap. This is, I think it's like a Gorilla sticky tack, but you can get any kind of sticky tack. It doesn't have to be really, just because it makes the heads interchangeable. And the way these printed heads come out, they have huge, like, it's not the peg hole like the WWE figures have, so I'm able to put this on. And you still have movement and everything on there. He doesn't have his knee pads or his boots on, because we're going to, like I said, paint, and there's no point in putting it on. I know they fit, so there's no point in putting it on to just take it off. But basically there is what our Owen Hart will look like. If I can get it to focus. And now it comes down to just the painting process and getting everything together the way we want it. So typically what I would do is take this apart once again. I separate the pieces that won't be painted right now. Usually what I start with, or what I will be starting with, is the legs, the lowers, which I had already began with. And like, oh, there's a delay on the camera. There we go. So I've already started with this coat of black, which was an incomplete. You can still see some of the design coming through. So very simple. Just get a medium brush. You're not looking for anything super detailed. I just use a typical brush. I do use a variety of brushes, especially a variety of pricing. Like some of them are quite expensive, some of them are, 99-cent store brushes. Really kind of matters what I'm doing. Usually most of the more expensive brushes tend to be for detailing. Always use clean water. Change your water as much as necessary or as much as possible. Now I just need to find my paint palette. There it is. And if you can see my horrible holy shirt, it's because I don't want to ruin a good shirt. So I use a trash shirt. Make sure you use... if kids are watching this, make sure you use clothes that you are okay, or your parents are okay with getting paint on. Also, put down newspaper or a mat or whatever to protect your working surface from the paint. I normally just paint on this. Like, this table is my painting table, so if I get a little paint on it, it's not that big of a deal. I'll get paint on my brush, dip it in some water, and then kind of mix it. So we don't want it super thick. We don't want really, really thick paint. You want it almost watery. Because this is a second coat, even though it hasn't been sealed, it's going to look a little darker underneath because it's black underneath. You just take your time. And like I said, for me right now, overbrushing is not a big issue because, once again, we're going to paint the flesh tone. You hear a weird noise. That's my dog sounding like a pig over there. I don't know what she's doing, but okay, once again, like I said, you don't want it super watery. However, you don't want it really thick. You want it to still have a consistency. You don't really want to be able to see through it too much when you paint it on the... I'm going to actually do part of the torso so we can see, because that way it won't be black underneath it. So you can see the consistency that you're looking for. Simply because if you go too thick with your paint and you don't water it down, number one, it can fill in the detail lines, which means you're losing that detail. And then it also makes it to where it will chip or flake very easy. So if you go multiple thin layers and then seal them the likelihood of the paint lasting longer is much higher. Once again, you take it, you dip your brush in a little bit of water, dip a little bit of paint. And this may still end up being a little bit taller than I want them to be because they are Swagger's legs. And I believe Jack Swagger is 6'2", and Owen was 5'11" or 5'10". So, however, Swagger came with longer boots, taller boots. So that made up for his height in the action figure. So we are hopeful that it's right around the height we want it for Owen. And this also will give you a good idea of why customizers charge so much for their customs. Some people think it's ridiculous to charge, you know, 80 and above for a custom action figure. But when you really break down the time spent along with parts and everything, so I set that aside to dry. I do it in a way where the torso is kind of floating. It's not touching the table. I use that peg right there. I usually put like my paint here to hold it so it doesn't flip over, but it should stand pretty well. So we're going to get this abdomen piece, and I'm going to paint it black. So if you can see on there, you can still see some of the writing through it, through the black paint. Because it's not super thick. That's the consistency we're looking for in the paint. Like I said, we don't want it to be too thick. The painting of the bottom part of this torso, where it's on the waist, isn't necessary, but you know, some people will twist it and see that it's not painted underneath, and if they bought the figure, they'll have a problem with it. So I honestly would suggest, if you're going to sell it, I mean, it's up to you. It kind of bothers me a bit. I don't do it on the top part of this because of the twisting in the hips. It will wear it, but you know what? Let's do it just so, for those that are out there that are going to want to have it done. So this is going to be a first coat on this one, so you will get a idea of how thin the paint. Like I said, not super thin, but you can still see the blue through it if the light catches it right. And that's, like I said, that's the first coat. We don't want it any thicker than that, because then you're building paint. And just like when you paint the walls in your house, you don't want the paint to be too thick, because that's what causes it to crack. And like I said, it will cause it to peel away and damage it. So we want to go multiple thin layers. Like I said, I typically do 3, but you can actually do more. It's kind of a preference. Oops, I went way too far on the waist right there, but my brush seems to be a little bit more frayed than I thought it was. So let me see if I have a better suited brush right here. My personal brushes are behind me, and I don't feel like turning around to get them. Oh, here we go. That's kind of the tip that I want, medium. Once again, dip it in the paint, or dip it in the water, dip it in the paint, mix it, you know. Same thing with this. This part is real easy because it's completely black. So it's just really about getting the paint on there. What I can do, or can't, and I still might, I mean, it's not too late, is, once again, you can still, like I said, see through it. You can see the silver right there, the writing on the tights that still seeps through. So there's this bending part right here where the torso bends up and down. You can, and I would suggest, is take some sandpaper, some fine grit sandpaper, and sand that down a little bit so the paint will stick better when it moves. It's just one of those little extras. It's not something you're gonna see, I don't believe, but just in case, you know, it will stick out like a sore thumb, and especially if it starts to scratch. So here, there's the bottom part of our torso, the abdomen area. Now we have the upper torso. And same thing. This paint, the thing about the using so much water is you can add more water to the paint, and it really stretches the paint out quite a bit. And like I said, on these, I don't really worry about the flesh too much, because like I said, I'm going to repaint it. And actually, if you look at the line work on these things, the figure's actually molded in the green, which is the color of the singlet, and then the flesh is painted over it. So there's little crevices and little areas where the flesh tone wasn't applied. So it looks like the green is overshot anyway, which we will do our best to fix. But hey, they don't even come perfect out of the factory, so as an artist, you're never really happy with, nothing is ever complete, I believe, in your mind. I know I feel that way all the time. I definitely overshot on the shoulder here, but like I said, it's not a big deal. You're really painting along the lines the best you can, and then just like any sort of paint, you're gonna try to clean it up with a fine detail brush. And you know, sometimes you'll overshoot, sometimes there'll be too much, and then sometimes, so you're going back and forth until you're happy with it. Like I said, you can see, if you really look, the paint beading off there. I did not alcohol wash these, which I typically do because it allows the plastic to become a little bit more porous, so the paint will stick to it a little bit better. So I have to add a little bit more black. And it's really just a drop, just a little dab. Drop it in the water, mix it up. And this is typically why I don't use really expensive paints when it comes to this, because you're wasting I mean, you're thinning it out so much and applying so much, it doesn't matter the quality of the paint, because the layers are what makes it last, as opposed to oh, it's a high quality paint, which I really don't think it makes a difference. I've used really expensive paints. They just, it's the same as using a one coat paint for on your house, when a one coat paint is never really a one coat paint. So it's really comes down to preference. I do really like Vallejo and Citadel paints. I like the color palettes that they have. I can find various colors and not have to mix, which is always a good thing. But in a pinch, 99 cents for some paint, a dollar something for paint is not bad. Especially when I do glitters and stuff like that. Something that I'm not going to use a lot. I'd rather use the cheaper ones, because the likelihood of me ever using it again is very slim. It's usually for a special occasion or a special order or something like that. So I would say, if you're going to use your more expensive paints, to keep it to your bases, the ones that you're going to use more than anything, blacks, whites, maybe your flesh tones, your reds, your brown, because I use those in my flesh tones typically. So, and once again, like I said, there's where this bends when he moves, so I just kind of want to get in there and get that black in there. So what we're going to do is let that dry, and then I will seal it and let that dry overnight, and then we do it all over again, the exact same thing. And once I'm happy with the coverage of the black, which is going to be our base coat, then we could move on to the next part. Now, I have a couple of minutes here, and I'm just going to show you. Let's shake up the Keslev flesh here. I'm going to show you why I don't worry about the overage on while I'm painting the singlet. So I'm trying to keep these under around 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes. So this is our flesh paint. Dip it in the water. There's some overage. I don't know if you can see it. This right here. See how it's crooked right there? So what I would do is take my flesh and just lightly brush it on there. And it cleans up really nicely. Now you can see it because there is a difference in the tone, in the flesh tones. See that ring going around it? But what it does is it will hide that really nicely, any of that overage. And like I said, since I'm painting the flesh, it will hide any of our mistakes. I won't say any, because there's always going to be mistakes. And I will do, once again, just to show it, the same where I said, is this dry? That I had gone over on the torso. Same thing. Dip in the flesh, dip in a little water. And this is what I'm talking about. I went a little bit over with the flesh now. which isn't a big deal because all we do is we'll go over it with the black, find our lines, but that evens the abdomen out a bit. Now typically I wouldn't suggest doing this because I'm going to go over wet paint with wet paint, but since the wet paint that I'm going to use is black anyway, we're just going to tip this out. We're going to find where our line is on the singlet on the abdomen here and try to straighten it out. And there it is. All right, folks. So that's the basis. That's our base that we're starting with this week. Once again, we're going to get more in depth. I will have the singlet completely blacked and sealed and ready for the next part, which will be moving on to the flesh. So we'll get the body sealed and put together, actually, because I'll be able to, for the most part, I believe, put it all together. One thing you want to remember is, well, it's still wet. Once this is dry, before it's too dry, you're going to want to move the pivots to make sure you don't freeze anything with any paint. So what we're going to do next week is, like I said, I will have this completely done as far as the base of the singlet, none of the yellows. Normally, if I'm going to do the water slide decals, I would excuse me, I would apply them before I put it together. But we're not using water slides. I'm probably going to paint it by hand, so that way it's a little bit more in depth, more like I said, something for people to experience and see. And honestly, I want to know if I'm able to do it. There's a lot of straight lines in it, so thank God this has a lot of black to help me correct issues. So next week what we'll do is we'll have this completely painted as far as the base of the singlet. We will be able to move on to the flesh tone, and I will show you how we do the flesh tone, especially to try to get it to look as much like flesh as possible and not these weird yellow grayish colors that toys come in. We're going to find that out. Once again, thanks for joining me. Be sure and check out those creators that I spoke of. There is Tom Veg on Instagram. He is a master sculptor. He sells his 3D, and he's out of, I believe he's out of the Ukraine, so it takes a little while to get, well, he's definitely in Eastern Europe. It takes a little while to get some of the sculpts, but I've been dealing with him for years. The stuff is amazing. He does really good work. He's the one that did the head of my Tupac and Biggie both. He did my Midnight Express, my Rock and Roll Express, Doom. Who else did he do? Stevie Ray. He did my Onita. So I have multiple head sculpts from the man, and he does, like I said, amazing work. So, and then there's also, once again, Dustin Young on YouTube. Definitely, if you want to learn how to torso crack those WWE Elites and Ultimate Edition figures. Once again, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, as well as YouTube and Spotify. If you follow whatever your seeing this video on, there's usually a link that takes you to a I think it's LinkedIn page, which will have all my information as well as the information from the store as well as the website for the store. Unfortunately, right now the store phone is broken, so if you call my store, I don't hear it ring. So you're better if you text message, or if you do call, leave a voice message, or you can DM me on any social media. Also, if you have any questions about customization or have any ideas of things that you want to see moving forward in the future, let me know. Once again, I'd like to thank you guys for joining me. Happy 51st birthday to me. And, have a good night, folks, and stay classy.